This is a tips and tricks for like refugees and new players. This is a guide on how to not be bad. A guide on how to not be bad will not make you the best. It will make you not bad at the game. And that is more important for a lot of people right now. I see players, average at best players, will give other players, new players, advice that they don't actually understand what it means. They're just regurgitating information. And a lot of times they get that wrong. So they're giving advice on things that they don't fully understand when they themselves don't even follow the advice because they're simply not good enough. This is the opener I use. This is the no trust in TBN. Now, can you guys tell me what TBN is? Blackest Night, a trick, Blackest Night. Okay, no, it's not. It's not. TBN is these big nuts in your mouth! Oh my God, he fucking got him already, dude. At the beginning of the guide, oh my God, Koji, can you believe this shit? Can you fucking believe this shit, dude? I do not use TBN in my opener because it does not pop all the time. I do use it in certain fights when it is 100% to pop. This is not the opener that you're going to use for every encounter in the game. I use this in a vast majority of fights, and I'll explain why I use what I do in this opener. There are openers that are better on paper. If you see TBN being used in the opener, I would not use that opener. The TBN, if it doesn't pop, you're fucked. You are absolutely fucked. Now, is TBN great? Absolutely. TBN is amazing. But if it's not 100%, I don't use it. If you're going to use TBN in your opener, I'll give you an example of when I do. I use it in T. That is a very good example because Living Liquid, one of the first things he does like 2 autos and he fucking cleaves your ass. He cleaves you. That's a lot of damage. It'll pop every time, easy. Easy every time. I use it. When I use it, I replace this Edge of Shadow with a TBN. Okay, so if you're pulling... I start with Unmend. Some people feel that it's better to pull without Unmend. And to a certain extent, I agree. Because Unmend, you know, on the countdown, 3, 2, 1, Unmend, you actually hit the button as the 1 is going away. Okay, now what this does, here's an advantage to this. Okay, here's an advantage to this that not a lot of people don't talk about. The advantage is you line up your GCD every single time. It is the same time. The alternative is you run in and you start with hard slash. Now you can do this. You can do this, and in some cases it's better. But again, we're on step 1. We are not on step 5. You need to not be bad first before you start to do all this cheeky little bullshit where you run in like perfectly lining up the server tick and all that shit. Okay? If you run in and just hard slash on like your first time, I guarantee you're going to fuck it up. I guarantee you're going to fuck it up. And you know why? Because you don't even know what a server tick is. You don't even know what a fucking server tick is, okay? The way that I play, I try to be as consistent as possible. Now, this goes all the way down to hitting the boss at the exact same time every single pull. People underestimate how important a quarter of a GCD is. They don't understand that the difference between a 2.41 GCD and a 2.40 GCD can literally mean an entire GCD. Yes, it is that important. If you use this opener, I promise you will not be bad, okay? Because I use this exact opener. I would recommend starting with Unmend. And the reason why is because you want to line your GCD up. You want to hit the boss at the same time every time. You want to practice that consistency because this comes into play later in the fight when you have to greed mechanics, like mechanics that make you run away from the boss. That's potential downtime. Okay, I'll give you an example. All right, so on E11, at the beginning of the fight, he can do a lightning AoE you have to move out of. Okay, if you run in and you don't use Unmend and you run in and hit hard slash, and let's say that you run in and you hit hard slash right after the boss is aggroed, like a half a second after the boss is aggroed. Okay, that means that when the boss does that mechanic where you have to run out, you are half a second behind. Whereas if you would have unmended, you would have been perfectly synced with the boss. So if you're half a second behind, well now the motherfucker that did the unmend, now he is ahead of you by 1 GCD because you wanted to run in because you didn't understand how server ticks work in this game. You wanted to run in because you heard it from some fucking mentor, a Burger King, and now you're a GCD behind. Is this the optimal opener for every fight? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Is this an amazing opener for every fight? Fucking yes. Fucking yes. The opener is insanely important, but what people don't give enough credit to is what happens after the opener. Like, a lot of people will just practice the opener and they won't actually practice anything else. So yeah, sure, they have an opener. I've played with a lot of people in Party Finder. They're really good at their opener because openers are super easy to do. You know what? Here, I'll show you how easy a fucking opener is to do, man. We'll just fucking do one right now. Like, this is how easy an opener is to do. I don't need anybody at all. I just come over here to my fucking, you know, my chef. I just do all this shit. You know, we're going to pretend we potted here. You know, whatever. Look, I don't need anybody for this shit. It's just me. It's just me and Faust, man. We're not bothering anybody. Now you do this over and over and over and over again. And eventually you'll get comfortable with it. Like me, it's all just muscle memory, man. It's all just muscle memory. Like, I'm talking to you guys. I'm like looking at, you know, the Twitch chat. You know, it's just all muscle memory, man. So openers are not hard to like learn and understand because you can practice them whenever you want. Okay. It's not just about the opener. It's also about the stuff that happens after the opener. Like, okay, because my GCD, my very first GCD in the opener happens at the same time every time. Well, now I'm able to greed shit. Now I'm able to get a GCD off on things that I wouldn't normally get a GCD off. And when you can do that, now you're ahead. What I typically see in Party Finder is the number of GCDs that a person will use. Their DPS in the opener is very consistent. They do the same opener all the time because they practice it. But as far as the mechanics go, as far as trying to get away with GCDs, their DPS just plummets. It just plummets because they don't know what to do. Okay, let's say that your rotation, your opener, is about an 8 out of 10. Okay, so it's not a 10 out of 10. But there is very, very, very little RNG to it. There's very little RNG on when you pull the boss. There's very little RNG on like what you can greed. It's extremely consistent. That 8 out of 10 is super good. That 8 out of 10 is going to be better than a 9 or 10 out of 10 that has a lot of elements of RNG to it. Now, if you're consistently bad, then you need to improve, okay? And that's what we're doing. I play with consistency in mind. If there's any element of RNG, I try to work around it. I try to find a better solution to it. Back to this shit. All right, so that is why I do 1 min in the opener. Okay, if you're tanking, do not face pull the boss. Don't. And don't start with plunge if you're tanking. Let me explain why you don't start with fucking plunge if you're tanking. Here's what happens when you start with plunge. All right, so you got the melee here, the tank there, the other melee here, and then you're here, and you're doing a countdown. 3, 2, 1. Okay, now you see that shit? The boss isn't moving, and these 3 back here are like, what the fuck? Now, you just cost these 3, this tank and these 2 melee, you just cost them a GCD. So because you wanted to Papega plunge your way in, because you think you're fucking smart or because you're cool or some shit, trust me, your party hates you. You should be kicked from the group. You should be fucking kicked from the group. Get the fuck out of here. Stop griefing. I don't give a shit if it's a 0.5 DPS increase. Don't fucking do it because it's a raid loss because you've just lost 3 GCDs. Don't be a fucking moron. The very first thing I would recommend, practice lining your GCD up at the same time every time. I cannot stress that enough, man. If there's one thing I hope that anybody gets out of this, it is make sure that you hit the fucking boss at the same time every time, because it will help you so much later on in the fight. The opener is such a little portion of the fight, man. You need to not only think about the opener, but you need to think about the rest of the fight too. You need to think about how much downtime am I receiving because my opener is scuffed. Because sometimes I hit the boss at half a second. Other times I hit the boss at a quarter of a second. Other times I hit the boss at 3/4 of a second. You need to hit the boss, the first GCD, the same time every time. And I promise you, it will make things line up. You'll also be able to tweak your skill speed more. You'll be able to say, okay, well, I can barely not get this GCD in, so I'm going to add a little bit more skill speed. I'm going to go from a 2.41 to a 2.40. Boom. Now I can get that GCD. Now I'm up a GCD. That little bit of skill speed tweak, up the GCD. These are the things you need to be thinking about, okay? ABCs. Who here knows what the ABCs are? Okay? And it's not ABC, these nuts in your mouth. Who knows what the ABCs are? Always be casting. What does that mean? That means this. You see how my GCD is always rolling? It's always rolling, okay? My GCD is always rolling, all right? Now, this is good, okay? This is good. This is bad. Sometimes there's forced downtime, and there's nothing you can do about it, okay? You just have to respect content, and that's fine. What I'm going to suggest to you is I'm going to suggest just some tips. And tip 1 is don't overcap on your mana. That's pretty simple. That's a pretty fucking important tip. Tip number 2, don't overcap on your blood gauge. Okay, now I'm going to show you what it means by overcapping. Now I have 10,000 mana. When I use Siphon Strike, let's read the tooltip. It restores MP. Okay, well, I have 600 mana. Well, I actually didn't gain any mana. So that's overcap. So step 1, don't overcap on mana. Okay? Step 2, don't overcap on blood gauge. What does it mean to overcap on blood gauge? Okay, now I have 100 blood. So when I do my AoE, this increases blood gauge by 20. Okay, well, I didn't actually get any blood gauge, and I didn't get any mana either. I overcapped on both. I know that was painful for a lot of you to watch. Maybe some of you are wondering, why didn't you mention Dark Side? Okay, I don't need to mention Dark Side. Most people don't even know what Dark Side is. And to be honest, you don't even need to know what Dark Side is. You don't need to know, because it's that easy. Because with step 1, it completely eliminates having to think about Dark Side. Step 1 is don't overcap on mana. Boom. All right, now this timer here, that's Dark Side. As long as you don't overcap on mana, this will never run out. I don't even know why there's a timer here. I guess there's a timer here because it's just a courtesy timer. It's a suggestion. This doesn't actually fall off. This doesn't actually fall off. This is just a suggestion. This is like in 41 seconds, we suggest you use an Edge of Shadow because it's like kind of impossible for it to fall off. I'm pretty sure you're going to overcap in fucking mana before this fucking thing even falls off. So the fact that this is even a thing is just completely irrelevant, and it'll never come up, and it'll never fucking matter. With those two being said, Dark Knight is about converting blood and mana into potency. So you convert your mana into edge, you convert your gauge into, or your blood into, Blood Spillers, Quietus, Living Shadow, just your abilities, okay? If you don't overcap on mana, you're doing good. If you don't overcap on blood, you're doing good.